The night she finally collapsed in the dust behind the boarded-up feed store, Clara believed she wouldn't live to see the sunrise. Her body felt as hollow as the forgotten grain silos leaning toward the highway, her breath thin and shaking, her palms scraped raw from running. She didn't know how far she had traveled or how many miles. Her fear had carried her, but she knew she had nothing left. Her purse was gone, ripped away in the struggle. Her phone had shattered when she threw it at the man hunting her. And the only thing she had managed to keep was the torn photograph crumpled. Inside her fist, soaked with sweat, the faces smeared but still recognizable. She had taken it without thinking when she fled the house because she had needed something, anything, to remind her she once belonged somewhere that wasn't made of threats and shadows. But now even that felt like a lie. The town she staggered into was almost silent, its windows dark, its sidewalks empty, its air buzzing with a strange tension that made her skin prickle. She braced a hand against the brick wall, swallowing down a sob, and told herself that if she kept moving, just a few more steps, she could reach the highway. Maybe she could flag someone down. Maybe she could disappear again. Maybe she could lose him. But her legs buckled and she dropped to her knees. Dust rose around her in soft spirals as tears blurred her vision. For one terrible moment she thought she heard footsteps behind her. Slow, deliberate, familiar. She froze. The air tightened. Her heartbeat stumbled. She didn't dare look. She didn't dare breathe. Then a shadow crossed the moonlit ground, but it wasn't the shape she feared. It was broader, slower, calm in a way that didn't fit the panic clawing up her throat. A man crouched beside her, the brim of his hat hiding most of his face. His voice low and steady as he said, "You're hurt." She jerked away, her hands shaking as she tried to crawl backward. But he didn't reach for her. He didn't crowd her or demand answers. He simply waited as if he had all the time in the world. The quiet in him frightened her more than anger would have. She didn't trust quiet. Quiet had always come before the shouting, before the fists, before the long nights when she had to convince herself that pretending everything was fine counted as surviving. She whispered, "Don't touch me," and hated how small the words sounded. "I won't," he said. His voice was rough, like gravel turned gentle. "But you can't stay here. Someone's gonna find you, and I don't think that's what you want." Her breath hitched. He knew. Somehow he knew. She looked at him fully then and saw he wasn't a sheriff. Not a stranger passing through. Not the kind of man who looked for trouble. His flannel shirt was frayed, his jeans dusty from work, and his hands scarred. Tough, steady, rested, on his knees with the patience of someone who fixed fences and broken barn doors, but not people. She whispered, "Who are you?" He didn't answer for a long moment. Then softly, "Just a man who saw someone fall." The world tilted. She could pass out right there, let the dark take her, let the danger trailing her swallow everything she had left. She could let the strange quiet man fade into the same blur as the rest of her nightmare. But then he shifted just enough for her to see the faintest worry in his eyes. A worry not for himself, but for her. It broke something in her. She didn't remember the moment he lifted her or the slow, careful steps he took carrying her toward the warm glow of a distant ranch house. She didn't remember whispering that she had no one left. But she remembered his answer clearly, even as consciousness slipped from her grasp. "Then you can borrow me for a while." She didn't know then how terrifyingly real that promise would become, or how deeply it would twist into the darkest parts of the life she had tried to outrun, or how the quiet cowboy who asked for nothing would become the only person standing between her and the man who had already taken everything she once was. The next morning she woke to the smell of coffee and wood smoke, sunlight filtering through an unfamiliar window, and the low sound of two voices murmuring outside the door. Her body felt stiff, her throat dry, her mind scattered like shards of broken glass. She pushed herself upright, wincing when pain shot through her ribs. Memories came in fragments, the running, the empty road, the quiet cowboy's arms around her as she faded into darkness. Panic clawed up her spine, wild and choking, until the door swung open and he stepped in. He paused when he saw her awake, hat in his hand, eyes steady. "Morning," he said. She pressed back into the headboard, adrenaline spiking. "Where am I?" "My place," he replied. "You fainted in town. Brought you here so you wouldn't get swept up by anyone who'd mean you harm." Her stomach twisted. "You don't even know me." "Don't have to." He set the hat on the table. "But someone was hunting you." I could feel it in the way you looked over your shoulder. Figured you deserved one night of breathing. Her fingers clenched the blanket. He's coming. The cowboy nodded as though he had expected that. Then we'll make sure he doesn't find you. She swallowed hard. Why would you help me? He pulled out the chair beside the bed and sat, his posture relaxed but watchful. Because you looked like a woman who'd been running a long time. And I know what it's like to hope someone might stop you from falling apart. She flinched at the honesty in his voice. It was too raw, too open, too dangerous. She didn't want anyone to look at her like that. She didn't deserve it. She whispered, You really shouldn't get involved. Too late, he said simply. The door creaked behind him as a tall woman with silver-streaked hair entered, carrying a tray. She set it on the bed and gave Clara a soft smile. I'm May. I live on the ranch, too. You're safe here, sweetheart. Clara blinked at her, surprised by the warmth in May's voice, the absence of judgment, the quiet understanding. It made something painful tighten in her chest. Thank you, she whispered. May squeezed her hand gently before leaving the room. The cowboy stood to follow but paused at the door. Eat, he said. You'll need your strength. She watched him go, the fear in her blood beginning to settle but not disappear. She didn't trust easily, not anymore, but something about him made her want to believe he was telling the truth. She didn't know he had already left his hatred for trouble behind years ago after losing his brother to a man whose anger looked too much like the one chasing her now. She didn't know the quiet in him had been carved by grief, sharpened by guilt, softened only by the stubborn loyalty he couldn't shake. She didn't know how deeply her arrival would awaken every instinct he had tried to bury. Later that afternoon, while she stood on the porch wrapped in a borrowed jacket, the wind carrying the distant scent of rain, she heard hooves pounding across the pasture. The cowboy, Elias, though she didn't yet know his name, rode toward her, his horse kicking up dust. He slid off in one fluid motion, tying the reins loosely before stopping in front of her. His voice was low. A truck was seen by the highway. Didn't recognize it. Didn't like the feeling. Her heart stopped. It's him. He studied her face, reading not just fear but history etched into her expression. Then we prepare, he said. She shook her head violently. No, I won't drag you into this. He won't stop. He'll hurt anyone in the way. A muscle in his jaw tightened. Let him try. You don't understand, she whispered. He's dangerous. So am I when I need to be. She stared at him, shocked by the calm certainty in his tone. He wasn't boasting. He wasn't trying to impress her. He was stating a fact as quietly as everything else he did. The truth of it pressed against her fears, giving them edges instead of chaos. That night she couldn't sleep. Every creak of the old ranch house made her flinch. Every gust of wind made her think of footsteps. She wandered into the dim kitchen and found Elias sitting at the table, cleaning an old revolver with slow, methodical movements. He didn't look up when she stepped inside. Can't sleep? She hesitated. Didn't mean to bother. You didn't. He placed the cloth aside and finally met her gaze. Sit. She did, her hands trembling so violently she had to hide them under the table. He noticed anyway. You don't have to tell me everything, he said softly. But maybe telling a little might help. The words poured out of her before she could stop them, the manipulation. The threats, the escalating violence, the way her world had shrunk until she could no longer breathe. The photograph she had grabbed in desperation. The last thing he had said before she ran, You belong to me. Elias listened without interrupting, his eyes dark and unreadable. When she finished, the silence that followed felt like a held breath. Then he said quietly, but with steel beneath it, He doesn't own you. She closed her eyes, a tear slipping down her cheek. He thinks he does, Elias. Leaned forward just enough for his voice to carry the weight of a promise. Then he'll learn he's wrong. The next day brought a tension she could taste, heavy and electric. The sky turned gray, the wind cutting through the ranch with a coldness that felt like warning. Elias stayed close, moving with a purpose she didn't understand but trusted. May watched the long dirt road with narrowed eyes. By noon, Clara paced the living room, her breath shallow, her chest tight. I should leave, she said. Elias shook his head. You'll die if you do. You might die if I don't. He didn't hesitate. My life's worth less than yours right now. She stared at him, shaken to the core by the simple truth in his voice. May stepped beside her, resting a hand on her shoulder. Men like him don't just stop when the woman disappears, sweetheart. They stop when someone stands in their way. In the distance, an engine growled. Elias turned toward the window. A black truck approached, slow, deliberate, prowling up the ranch road like a predator savoring the moment before the kill. Clara's knees went weak. "It's him," she whispered. Elias stepped in front of her, his posture shifting into something she had never seen in another person. Not aggression, not fear. Something colder. Something older. Resolve sharpened to a deadly edge. "Stay behind me," he said. She grabbed his arm, voice cracking. "Please don't do this." He didn't look back at her. "I'm not doing anything, except what a good man should have done for you a long time ago." The truck stopped. The door opened. The man she had fled stepped out, smiling as though he already owned the ending to this story, except he didn't, not anymore. What happened next? Clara would replay in her mind for years, not as a nightmare, but as the precise moment her life shifted. The moment the terrified, broken version of herself died and something stronger took its place. The confrontation was not loud. It was not dramatic. It was two men standing in the dirt with the storm rolling overhead, one fueled by control and cruelty, the other by quiet purpose. Words were exchanged, sharp, brutal, cutting, but the wind stole them before she could hear. She only saw the shift in her pursuer's face when he realized Elias wasn't afraid of him, not even a little. She saw the fury ignite. She saw him raise his hand. And she saw Elias move not with violence, but with the kind of finality that didn't need force to be unstoppable. When it was over, when the man she had feared for so long was finally taken away, by the arriving deputies, rage broken, power gone, she sank to her knees. Elias crouched in front of her, hands gentle on her shoulders. She couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, couldn't understand why he had risked everything. He whispered, "You don't owe me a thing." She shook her head, tears streaming. "But you gave me everything." "No," he said softly. "I just gave you a place to start again." And for the first time in years, she believed she could.